This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call the police committee meeting to order on March 29th at 5:30. We're at Village Hall, and we're here under the executive order, but all the trustees as part of the committee are in attendance with Jason, Adam, and Julie all here. We also have Chief White, we have Mary Gaziano, attorney, and we have President Eubank on video. So we will be recording this call, and it's up to the agenda. So I guess, do we have to do a roll call attendance? I don't know if we always have done that. Do we need to do that?
You're supposed to do a roll call attendance when you meet virtually, but you're all here.
Okay,
So
that's how we've been running it. We haven't been roll calling, but since the attorneys are here, I'm asking the question.
For another month, or another 2 weeks, whatever it is.
All right, and now we have Nick Cap in and out of attendance as well. Okay, so any conflict of interest based on today's agenda from anyone? Not hearing any, we'll move on to public comment, of which no one is here and no one decided for public comment. You have the police committee meeting minutes from February 20, are they February meetings? Yeah, it's only March, oh God. The February minutes, if you've had a chance to look at them, if you're to make a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion for approval of minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, I think we could do that, right? Since we're all here. All right. Got several agenda items here, and thank you, Attorney Gaziano, for attending to help us go through a couple of these things. And I know Jeff has talked to you. I sent you a little note, I think last night, when I was sending all these notes out for the MOU for the SRO. We're in a kind of an interesting situation because the school board has already approved their version after their attorney looked at it. I know, Frank, you had a chance to look at it and said, yeah, I'm okay with that, but I'm gonna take it to police committee. They had already approved it. They already approved Jeff being their SRO, but we've never approved it as a board. And we kind of had issues with the added language, and so we wanted to kind of get your view on, are we just overreacting to it? Are we fine with it from a legal opinion, since their legal person changed it? We needed your blessing, or wanted your blessing, and to discuss it a little bit. So again, I sent you the document. I guess the first thing talking about basically union labor, which we don't have, should probably be stricken from there, number one, right? It talked about, let me see if I can pull it up. I might be able to pull it from my email system. And it was all in the same section. Everything that we had an issue with was all in the same section of that MOU. Page 3, section 5.
It should be under personnel, yeah.
Okay.
So, let me see.
Didn't we think that the two paragraphs conflicted with each other? I gotta read it.
You know, I think
Yeah,
our
I don't
biggest,
mind.
I think we resolved that at this, that we thought there was a conflict with this and something later, but I think this, the word counseling. So
Oh, yes.
underneath personnel, number 5, the first paragraph, Mary, it basically says, the police officer selected by the village for the SRO position shall have a demonstrated interest and potential for working with and counseling students. And we thought, well, it says later in there, you're not to counsel students, so it was just kind of awkward that they inserted that.
Well, and Frank and I had talked about that.
Okay.
Today, actually, we spoke for it at length because I knew that that was one concern, and I had the same question. But what Frank had indicated to me, and he can talk to it, I think, more, is that there it's just an indication that you want to have somebody who has a demonstrated interest who wants to work with and counsel students. It's not saying they're going to be a counselor of the students, but that, I think he gave me the example of like, I believe it was Jeff Spellman, that if they're talking to a high school student about some things that has happened, they're going to talk in a certain level to say, hey, get your act together kind of thing. Where if you're talking maybe with a much younger student, somebody who's 10 years old, you're going to monitor to their level.
Sure.
Is that a fair assessment, Frank?
Right, that is. In paragraph 22, it does state that they would not engage in guidance counseling, which is completely different than the type of counseling contemplated in paragraph 5. And paragraph 5 is really more in terms of they want an officer that shows an interest and potential to counsel in terms of being able to work with a student, not give guidance counseling that we already have a staff member at the school that is there for that particular purpose.
Okay, I think I think we resolved with the fact that they said clearly later that you're not to be a guidance counselor. I think we were kind of getting okay with that in this number 5. The other one, that weird language about, I mean, I get it, but again, it's in writing and I always get weary of things you sign and sign off on. So the village shall be responsible for selecting and assigning an officer to the SRO position. However, the school district may at its sole discretion refuse or reject the assigned SRO or demand the assignment of a new SRO at any time by providing written notice to the village. That's one issue because we can't just swap. And then the second is the next sentence. The village will address any concerns or complaints regarding the SRO's performance and conduct in collaboration with the school district. Then later on, the next paragraph talks about you only discipline. So it was just, I don't know, it was just getting kind of mucky, I thought.
Well, I mean, I think that the school has a right to say, we don't like this officer.
Right.
You know, that if they're paying for the person, so if they're not satisfied, then it appears to be saying that the village is going to work in conjunction with them to deal with the situation. Now, if we don't have somebody, we don't have somebody.
Well, then just go without.
And they just
So
go
here-
without if they don't like the person.
So here's some other things about that. We also have paragraphs 15, 16, and 17 that talk about the supervision, evaluation, discipline of the officer. So we have those in there that directly address those issues. But I agree with Mary that the school district, since they are paying for the police officer to be the SRO, they should have the ability to tell us and the SRO, you're not welcome to come back today. And there could be an incident between the SRO and staff or the public or students. And because the school district is responsible for being loco parentis for the children, they have to protect the children. So if there's an incident with an SRO, we want to make sure the school has all the authority to say, we don't want this officer here. The other thing that Mary brings up is we may only have one SRO. And I've brought this up, I believe, to several people, maybe been Chief White and Nick, but we need to have more than one officer that has been accredited as an SRO officer.
I was just gonna say that.
Right, because if we have an SRO that's ill, an SRO that wants to take vacation, has to take leave for an extended period of time, it could be maternity, paternity, or anything else. Or if that officer is suspended due to an investigation of conduct, we should have a secondary officer or 2 or 3 officers that have that training so that person can move in and be there seamlessly. So I think we already do have one officer, Spellman, that will be the SRO, but I think we have 1 or 2 other officers that could fill that role as long as they have the proper training and accreditation. So I think that would be helpful so that if this incident occurred where the school said we don't want this person, we would have a backup.
And the training is what, Jeff? It's a week?
40 hours, yeah, 40 hours.
It's the 3rd week of June.
Oh, that's only offered once a year?
Usually, yes. They do it during the summertime, so, officers can attend outside the school year.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a yearly renewal or one
They've
time?
been doing it once a year.
But when they take the class.
Every does the first time, it's just a refresher the second time.
Okay.
So if he gets it this year in July, he can take it again next year. It's just kind of it's a short
Something they gotta
one.
do every year?
Yeah, it's something you have to keep up with every year.
So they're continuing it for it?
Yeah, it's just a matter of putting a second person in there that will be down 2 people here for those 40 hours. You know, and if you want to go more than that, I mean, we could certify one this year, certify another one next year, you know, however you want to work it. The cost to us is our $85 membership in the Northern Illinois Training Advisory Board in that group. So we can send as many as we want. It's $85. It's not gonna cost us any extra money. It's just a matter of being able to fill spots when people are gone. If you want to send 2 or 3, then they're gonna be short here 2 or 3 for 40 hours
Mhm.
for that whole week.
Yeah, it's a little-
My initial thought would be if we could have two go, Officer Spellman and another officer that you might think would be a good backup. And if we have the coverage for those two to be gone, that way we've already got two people that can be an SRO. And then the next year we could have a third officer, because then we would have several officers that have completed a year of probation or close to a year of probation, or actually probably have their year in.
I have more concern, that we had talked about the vacation and everything, so I get covered in that, but after what you just said, that they could, okay, they can say at any time, if it's once a year training,
Yeah,
and they say in the fall, there's no officer till the next year.
so it's an impact on our budget too, because we were counting on that, and now we've, but it is what it is. I mean, we don't want to have a bad relationship with them.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're going willy-nilly.
Oh,
saying,
no,
you know,
I
we don't want
absolutely
it.
agree.
They're the ones who want the school resource officer.
But we should
Yeah.
have a backup.
We should, because like you said, if something happens, if he gets hurt or extended leave, or he gets pneumonia, or, he's out of commission for 6 weeks, breaks a leg because, trips in a hole, we probably should. Just maybe somehow make it, figure it out, and send two in one shot and be done.
And if they wanted a secondary one on hand,
That'd be
we could have, they want to go through the same process they did with Jeff Spellman, interview him and have him meet the board and all that stuff, to make sure that it's suitable for them if something were to happen to Jeff, that this person's okay with them. So I think that maybe coordinate with them to say, hey, this is gonna be our secondary, our backup SRO officer. Is this somebody that you want to interview and go through that whole process like you did with Jeff to make sure they're gonna be compatible with what you're looking for?
I think, Jeff, that's a very good point, because we would want the school district ahead of time, before we send an officer to the training, that they are okay with that officer being a backup.
Now, I've got to read into something else. Should we send somebody from the management team? So you are understanding of what they're learning in the class, and you have,
Well, then they'll all be out.
well, I get that. But should the second one, maybe the first round be one of you two, and next year you send somebody else? So you know what training they just went through, so if
I
something
understand,
comes up,
I
you
understand,
see where I'm
I
going.
understand what the point is, but there's a lot of things that
I understand, there's
go on
not,
day to day that.
I
have to
understand
take a lot
that
of
too.
Time away from.
I understand that too, but it's a 1 week, it's not, you said this is a 6-month class, okay, I will.
I think Jeff's alluding to if he had to be the substitute.
No, he's just saying a manager should understand
You're
You're
talking about sending 3 people to the
Eventually, yeah, so like this year, maybe be Spellman and then somebody on the management team for this year, and the next year you fill it through on your third officer. Yes, for your first year.
Spot, but you would understand what you're supervising. That's
Correct,
like-
or not, if not, maybe next year,
The
you
only
guys.
the only
do it.
problem you're gonna run into is if during this next school year, if one of us goes along with Jeff, and if Jeff has to be out, then it's gonna be one of us being up there.
Right.
So that maybe next year, one of you guys go, next year, so you guys have to understand,
Yeah,
if something happens,
I would get a second person now with the group we have
That's fine.
outside of him and I,
Right.
and then maybe,
then maybe next year, one of you
yeah,
two can.
that makes sense.
I know what you're
Tell
saying.
which way the pecking order is gonna go. I just.
The concern that I have is that if we're sending an admin person, we're paying that person for a full week's salary, attending the program. I wonder if there's a way that we can get a synopsis of the program sent to us, so that our administration can see what's being taught, so they can review it at their own time, rather than having to have them out of the office for 40 hours for a full week. I just think it's, we already have them going for staff and command and for other things. I don't know that we might need them to go to SRO training, because they're not really going to be an SRO.
Sorry. What am I on here? SRO curriculum. So if you pull that up online, there is 41 pages of, I would call that a synopsis that tells you a lot of things that they're going to be training in that. You guys could already have some of this training, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
Interviewing juvenile witnesses, 10 to 11, 15. I'm sure you've had some kind of training in that. I don't know.
Or real life experience.
I would hope so.
I have a very good relationship with about training advisory board who sets up all those trainings. So I can ask him to get that to me in advance of curriculum, or the topics or what exactly they're gonna teach, and that won't be a problem, so.
Yeah, tells you
We
everything.
can have that on hand, just to know what's going on and what's gonna happen with it. I mean, you can have a police officer out there that's not a certified SRO, who can still do the things the SRO is doing. They're just not certified as an SRO. They can do the same work the SRO does, they're just not certified.
All right, so I think from what I'm hearing here, we're all okay with this language. So the only other thing, I guess, is the bargaining stuff in there. Does that bother anybody, or do we just go to and sign it?
Because they got the word applicable.
Yeah, so I didn't see that as an issue
Okay.
because
They're
if
just
it
covering their
doesn't
bases.
apply, it doesn't apply.
Okay.
Was that in 5 as well?
Yeah,
It's in a couple different spots.
it's on number 5, second paragraph, first sentence, and then it's on there again, like mid-paragraph, second paragraph. It just talks about applicable, with any applicable bargaining agreement, of which there are none applicable, I guess you would say.
That's the way I.
Okay, so with that, I guess, committee members, are we ready to, offer a resolution to the board to have Frank sign the SRO MOU?
Could I offer a couple of different comments?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Well, I had talked with Frank about these and they were resolved for me, so I just wanna, just in case anybody else was thinking the same thing. When I was going through it, and I think this one, there still is a little bit of a question, but in number 10 on holidays, where the SRO must account for the 84 hours each pay period, and we understand that the school district has several holidays and the non-school days, and the SRO works those days and can work days the school isn't in session and can report to the school, he or she can report to the school with the permission of the building principal to perform administrative duties, attend training, so on and so forth. I had added a sentence to say at the end, otherwise the SRO will be working at the village or is otherwise directed by the chief of police. The only thing and I understand the school has already signed it, but I just was trying to clarify that what if the school doesn't want the person for the full 84 hours? Does that person understand that then they're working for the village those other hours? Because you wouldn't, one, you want to make sure that the village has the benefit of that individual during that time, unless they're on vacation or whatever. And two, that the individual is given 84 hours in that pay period. So that it can't, not that, what if the school's on Christmas break or spring break? I don't know how they handle that. Frank and I were talking about that. And you just want to make sure that the officer is getting paid.
Yeah.
Somehow. So again, that's just something I brought up.
And I think that would
Sure.
fall, would that not fall under the percentage, at least the 25% that we pay for the officer? If there are hours that he can't get his 84, that those hours would just fall underneath the village to pay the, whatever's short in those 84.
I mean, we would still put them to work, we would still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that individual understands that, I guess, assume they would want to work their full 84 hours.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
They have to work either place.
Right.
Or take PTO that
Or,
day.
yeah, if they're not otherwise off.
It also
Okay.
states in that same paragraph, the last sentence, the last actually phrase is duties, attending training, or see their supervisor for an assignment. So again, it's the SRO responsible for working 84 hours, and they would ask the supervisor,
Yeah.
hey, school doesn't need me, what do I need to do? And if it's a village duty, then the village would pay the SRO for that time.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of covered with that very last phrase. It says, or see their supervisor for an assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had just talked to Frank about on page 7, where in number 21, it talks about search and seizure, and it's talking about the designated SRO as a person with legitimate educational interest in safety, order, and discipline, and that if the SRO has a reasonable suspicion of school or legal violation, he may act with the principal's authority. And I was wondering if that was somehow in conflict with 14C, where when we went to 14C, it said that the SRO would not be expected, and that's on page 5, or asked to detain or take into physical custody any student who's violated district policies or to enforce district policies. But what Frank explained, at least in the drafting, was that the distinction was that it is, in 21, it's officer initiated, where the officer is going and saying, hey, I think there's a problem, maybe this is gonna lead to something, can I do such and such? And then that's how that's distinguished from in number 14, where he or she is not expected to do it, so then the school director.
I think there's a very big distinction between policies and laws as well.
Right.
The search and seizure is based on a criminal act. 14 would be on district policies and procedures. So it's a policy or a dress code or whatever for the school to do the discipline for that. Whereas I look at 21 as being more of a criminal act. If they have indications that, or information that indicates maybe a child supposedly brought a gun to school, that would give us the ability to search those items that person has access to because of the possible criminal element involved.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, it's just, I thought the wording where it said if the SRO has reasonable suspicion of school or other legal violations.
Yeah, I think they could have been clarified a little bit more as far as, something in there with this says criminal act or potential criminal act or something like that, but,
And what about, and I forgot to mention this to Frank, but it's probably covered overall, but in 24 with presentations where it says the SRO will be available for talks on law enforcement and safety matters, is that presumed that it's with compensation as established for the other duties that are referenced?
That would be part of the compensation. So like during the school day, if you have a DARE officer and we have the SRO acting like a DARE officer, giving a presentation during the school day, I believe that's what it means by 24. Or if you have for the driver's ed course, they would have the village attorney sometimes come in, they might have the chief come in. Here we can have the SRO give a statement to the class about driver's ed. So I think that would be part of the time frame. If it's overtime because it's an after school presentation to maybe parents or students, that would be part of the overtime, and then it's capped at a certain amount the village pays versus what the school district has to pay.
yeah, 'cause I think it's our benefit to do those presentations as well. It's gonna benefit the community, number one, the school, number two, and the student, and parents of the student.
Okay, and then the last thing that I had was in number 27 on page 8, the last sentence that starts off in addition to the rules, regulations, policies. I thought that there was a phrase missing, and Frank and I were going over that, and I think that there is potentially a phrase missing where it would be something to the effect, in addition to the rules, regulations, policies, and procedures of the district regarding disclosure of school record information pursuant to FERPA and ISSRA, that there'd be something like this paragraph shall expressly include the reciprocal reporting guidelines established, as it reads the rest of it. Now, I don't know how critical that is, but I'm just saying, I was just pointing out, I kept reading and rereading it and I couldn't make it make sense. So,
I think I had a problem with that one too, and I thought, okay, I'm just not understanding this.
so those would be my only comments.
Yeah, I think overall with that language, if it had not been passed by the school district, I would say that we would change and add those couple of words, change those couple of words. But as it is adopted by the school, I don't think it's something that would ever be brought to court and would have to be interpreted. And if it was interpreted, I think, we would say that it's an additional item that modifies the previous paragraph. So I don't think we would really have an issue overall. So again, if we don't have to make any changes to this, we can adopt what the school district did. If we make any changes whatsoever, we then have to bring it back to the school district for them to readopt. So it's really how you want to proceed with it.
Well, and it's, the contract's only good for the next school year, so maybe we'll make note of it for next fall when we're on the 24-25.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I had
24-25 contracts, be nice once we get hammered this out, maybe instead of 1 year, we get like a 3-year contract, we're not coming back to it every year.
And I can understand doing it for one school year to see how it plays out, and then maybe adjust some of this information if we have to for the 24-25 year, just to see, because there might be things that come up that we need to address in this agreement, within that first school year, so,
Could this agreement be amended anytime in the school year if we need to?
yeah, I think so.
The term will actually go through the 2024-2025 school year. So it will take effect for the 23-24. It's in paragraph 4 on page 3 at the very top of page 3. And so the term of the agreement shall,
Oh, yeah,
Through the end of
that's right.
24-25.
Okay.
Well,
So
because
it's-
then under appendix A number 2, it says parties agree for the 23-24 school year. Nothing about 24-25.
right, but we further
So they
On
got
page
2
1,
different
you're-
dates.
Where's your
on
other
page
date?
1,
10.
10 at the very bottom under appendix A.
Oh, that's the fee for the 1 year.
yeah,
We don't have anything
that's
on
the
fee for
fee.
this year.
And then it just says what's going to happen after that year is that it will not exceed 5% after that. So the 2024-2025 year, it will not exceed 5% of what we charge for 2023-2024. But the term of the agreement is on page
I see it.
3. And so it is a 2-year agreement that'll start in August or whatever time the SRO is going to be starting. But you're right, Adam, we can, when we go to modify this or we go to extend it, we can make the changes then, and we can see if a 3-year or 4-year agreement makes sense.
And I'll keep my draft too, because I had some grammatical type changes, but again, since the school district has already done it, nothing that's critical.
Okay. Thank you both for your input there.
Resolution.
You're
pushes
welcome.
through.
Yeah, you guys all okay with, to bring this to the board with a resolution to have,
I'll make a
who's
motion.
John?
How about this? I will make a motion. I'll make a motion to bring this to the full board for approval at the next village.
Approval and authority for the edict to sign.
Yes.
You want to second that, Jason?
Second.
All right, all in favor, Adam,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Julie, yes. Okay, we will move that forward to the board meeting. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, and everyone have a good night.
You
All right.
too, thank you.
Oh, you leaving us?
Yes, I am. Mary knows we had a 4.5 hour, I was at the village for 4.5 hours Monday night for zoning, so I think I'll cut this one short.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
Frank.
Okay. All right, sorry if you guys thought it was over.